It's October, it's spooky season. Let's talk about a band that definitely fits the spooky vibe, Alkaline Trio. Alkaline Trio are legends. I don't think anybody would argue that. They're one of the biggest bands in the scene, and their sound of gothic punk has always been pretty unique. Alkaline Trio, just like me, are from Chicago. They are one of the pillars of punk rock. They're one of the bands that in high school, if you're into alternative music, that everyone knew and listened to. It was like Trio, Fall Out Boy, Rise Against, Smashing Pumpkins. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but those were like the big four. These massive bands that we all had this connection to because they were from our hometown. I remember Trio being on the radio here in Chicago, so that's how normal it was to hear the band. And I know alternative radio sucks and it's dead and it's unimportant, but it was still cool in high school and in college to be able to turn on the radio and hear such an awesome band like Trio. That being said, this is my first real deep dive into the band. I obviously know all the hits and songs like that, but definitely going through this entire process and listening to all the Trio albums, there were songs that I heard for the first time. Alkaline Trio has 9 albums, so let's get into it. Alright, Alkaline Trio's first album. I know a lot of people say that this is the best Trio album, but I don't think so. Cringe, a Cop. That's funny. I almost kind of... Did you think I was going to call the album Cringe? Cringe, Cop, San Francisco, a few other songs I really enjoy, but I don't think it's the best album. And that's not to say that I really, hate the album or anything. There were a few other songs that I forgot that I really liked. Clavicle and Sorry About That is a great little acoustic song. So I'm going to go with B for this album. I think that's pretty solid overall. Just that I was expected to be blown away when I was looking online. It was like, this album is, without question, the best Trio album. And to me, it is a solid B. Before moving on, I do want to talk about Cringe and Trio's performance of Cringe for Guitar Center Sessions, I think it's called. I'll have it linked or have some kind of picture here to let you know what I'm talking about. This is the best performance of Cringe ever for this Guitar Center Sessions or whatever it's actually called. I see it get posted on Twitter every now and again, but I think the first comment, if it's still the first comment, says something like, if this was just an audio file sent to somebody who knew the song Cringe, you would expect it to be this is a remastered version of it or a perfect studio performance of the song. It is phenomenal if you've never checked it out. I don't know if the band just woke up one day and said to themselves, hey, we're going to go crush this performance for Guitar Center. But it is, to me, it's better than the version on the album. So hopefully Guitar Center never takes this video down. I downloaded it just to make sure, if it ever does, that I have it. But go check it out and let me know in the comments if you think that this is one of the best performances of that song. Maybe I'll Catch Fire. To me, I think this album does pretty much everything better than what Trio did on the first album. She Took 'Em to the Lake is one of my favorite songs from the band. I've taken many crushes to go and hang out around Lake Michigan, and I've been broken up with a lot and then gone and stared out at Lake Michigan to reflect while listening to this song. Keep 'Em Comin', Mad at Me, F You Aurora, Sleepyhead, all good songs. And then, of course, you have Radio, one of the band's biggest songs. I remember watching an interview with Trio, and they were saying that Radio is the one song that they have to play at every show, that people get visibly and will let them know that they're upset if they don't play a Radio, one of the band's biggest songs, and it's great. What else is there to say about Radio? A phenomenal song, one of the band's best. I also want to mention the album cover here. Anytime the weather in Chicago remotely looks anything like this album cover, I see it get posted on Twitter, so I did just want to mention that. For Maybe I'll Catch Fire, I'm going to go with B again, and I know I just said that it's better than the first album, but after going through all of Trio's albums, for my overall ranking, while I do think it's a little bit better than the first album, slotting it in B, I think, is the perfect place to put it. From here to Infirmary, this is S tier. Going through all the albums for this video, this album had the most songs that got stuck in my head, and it had the most songs that I came back to after I was done listening to everything. This was the album that I had on repeat over and over again. Of course, you have Private Eye, Stupid Kid, Armageddon, which might be my favorite Trio song. You have those are the hits, I would say, but this album has a lot of amazing deep cuts as well. I love Bloodied Up. It's quickly becoming one of my favorite songs from the band. Mr. Chainsaw, Trucks and Trains, a Steamer Trunk, some of my favorite deep cuts, and they're slowly becoming some of my favorite songs from the band. I think up to this point with Trio, every single album has gotten better, at least for me. But with this album, I think this is just the most Alkaline Trio album. It just hits everything that they do so well. It's the perfect mix of darkness, fast and catchy songs, and clever lyrics. And with the album cover, simple and iconic, very gothic, very Trio. Again, From Here to Infirmary, S tier. Good Morning. In my albums that punk bands hate video, I said I agreed with Matt Skiba that this was the worst Alkaline Trio album, and some people were upset in the comments, so I went back and listened to it, and I've changed my mind. It's not the band's best album, but it's not the worst either, and out of all the songs that have gotten stuck in my head since I've been working on this video, We've Had Enough is at the top of that list. I also said in that Albums That Punk Bands Hate video that the acoustic version of Every Thug Needs a Lady is so much better than the full band version on this album, but the full band version is growing on me. It has moved up on my list, but not that high. I'm gonna go with a C for Good Morning. Crimson. I was having a tough time deciding whether to go A or B for this album. I really like the first half and the second half not as much. If they would have cut like 2 or 3 songs, this might be an A and it might even be an S. Also, does anyone think that Crimson and My Shame Is True sound alike at all? Or is it just me? I feel like you could trade songs from each album and it wouldn't really be that jarring to, listen to, a song from Crimson or a song from My Shame Is True back to back. Like, I think somebody who didn't really know Trio could be like, oh yeah, like these could both be on the same album. That might just be me, and it might just be because I've been listening to nothing but Alkaline Trio over the past, 4 or 5 days. But I made that observation, I wrote it down, so I wanted to share it. I also found it surprising that Mercy Me is actually the band's biggest song, at least on Spotify. That's what I have. So it's Mercy Me and then Radio at number 2. I for sure would have thought it was Radio, but nope, it's Mercy Me. Fall Victim and Back to Hell are also up there as some of my favorite deep cuts from Trio. It was close, very close, but I'm going to go with B. Agony and Irony. I honestly don't have too much to say about this album. Calling All Skeletons is a great song. I Found a Way, Help Me Over and Over are pretty good, but pretty much everything else just blended together for me. So I'm going to go with the D for Agony and Irony. Up next is This Addiction, and I really like this album. I don't know if that's a hot take. I know a lot of people really don't like the later Alkaline Trio albums, specifically This Addiction and the next album that we're going to talk about, but I like this album. This album came out when I was in high school, so nostalgia is a factor, but again, I like this album. I'm going to defend it. This Addiction, Dine Dynamite Darling, Off the Map, Piss and Vinegar, not to mention the acoustic versions of some of the songs in the deluxe edition, which I am counting because it's my list. It's all good stuff. I have the physical CD somewhere. I always wanted a vinyl of This Addiction as well, since this album means so much to me. But when I listen to it, I'm immediately taken back to high school, my high school crush, my high school band. It just fills me with nostalgia. But, disregarding the nostalgia, like I said, there are a lot of great songs on this album. And if nothing else, the title track, This Addiction, I think is a top tier Alkaline Trio song. I feel like the best way to describe This Addiction is calm. I know there are a lot of fast, punky songs on this album, but overall it's one of the more calmer Alkaline Trio albums. So for This Addiction, I'm going to go with B. My Shame is True. This is another underrated Trio album, in my opinion. This would have been college Trio for me. She Lied to the FBI, Warhol, St. Anthony, Pessimist, all great songs. I don't know if we're counting Broken Wings, the Broken Wings EP, as part of this album. It was a part of the deluxe edition, so I'm going to count it. Broken Wings, the song is great. Check it out if you haven't. Until Death Do Us Part has got to be one of the most underrated Alkaline Trio songs. When Matt Skiba sings, "Tell me everything will be okay, tell me you're still in love with me," I mean, that's Alkaline Trio perfection. For me, I'm going to put My Shame is True as a B. We're finally here, the last Alkaline Trio album, at least the most recent Trio album when I'm recording this. Is This Thing Cursed? And this is an A. I love this album, it's amazing, and I think it's one of the most underrated punk albums to come out in the last few years, and it should be talked about a lot more. I think sometimes people can't get over their nostalgic feelings for a band, if that makes any sense. It's kind of hard to explain, but you know, they always like, what's the cliche thing that you always hear about? The band's new stuff is never as good as their old stuff. And I think if people would just kind of, they almost dismiss the new stuff and only want the hits. And I'm guilty of that too. You know, sometimes you don't even want to listen to new music from anybody. You just want to listen to, you know, the 5, 10, or 15 songs that have been with you, you know, since you started getting into music, and you just want to, you know, listen to those songs on repeat over and over again. I'm guilty of it too. But if you would, you know, if you could just get over that and check out band's newer material, in this case Alkaline Trio's newer stuff, I think a lot of people would discover that there are a lot of good songs in the, you know, the newer Alkaline Trio albums, and some of the best songs the band has. I don't really have that issue as a younger fan of the band, relatively young, I guess, at this point in my life. But like you've seen throughout the video, I like a lot of the newer stuff that Trio has put out. If you're a fan of punk rock, you should check out this album. If you're a fan of Trio and for whatever reason haven't listened to this album, you should check it out. The title track is great. Blackbird, Demon and Division, Little Help, Stay, Throw Me to the Lions, the acoustic album closer Crystalline. There are some great songs on this album. I have an entire video about this album on the channel, so please check that out. I feel like I covered a lot of stuff in that video that I don't really want to repeat, but I love this album. Is This Thing Cursed? Is an A. Alright, I know the hardcore Trio fans were waiting, and I do want to talk about Remains and the other compilation album from Trio. Remains, on Spotify at least, is listed as an album, so I know that can be confusing for some newer fans who clicked on this video, but it's not an official studio album. And I love that the other compilation album is just called The Alkaline Trio. I think that's hilarious. But some of these songs, the reason I wanted to include them is because some of the songs on these albums can only be found on these albums, besides like EPs and, you know, rare, you know, stuff, which we're not going to talk about. The whole reason of a compilation album is to put rare songs in one place for ease of access. So yeah, EPs and stuff if you really want to get hardcore in Alkaline Trio. But you know, This Is Getting Over You, I Lied My Face Off, My Friend Peter is one of my favorite songs from Trio. It was the first song that I ever heard from Trio, so, and it's just a great song. And then on Remains, we have Warbrain, which is one of the most popular songs on Spotify for Trio, which I think is kind of crazy. Like, it's not one that I would have associated as being like one of the most popular Trio songs. It's a great song, and I love it, but I just didn't think as many other people loved it. Hell Yes, My Standard Break from Life, Green Beers, Queen of Pain, Rooftops, you know, all of these songs are great, and they're only available on these two albums. I'm going to put them both at C, just to be fair, since technically they're not real albums, even though I've been breaking the rules this entire list. And technically Spotify is on my side in this, listing Remains as an album. But yeah, so, and I also think it's just hilarious that the other album is called The Alkaline Trio. Like, why put the in there? It's just Alkaline Trio on the cassette tape on the album cover. Is it really The Alkaline Trio? But anyway, that's it. That's all the albums and 2, I guess, bonus albums of The Alkaline Trio. And yep, that is my list. It was really fun diving into Alkaline Trio, diving deep into them more than I ever have. They are, as you can tell, one of my favorite bands. And going through this whole adventure journey, you know, to making this video and listening to Alkaline Trio. Really pretty much the only band that I've listened to for like the last 3 or 4 days. Has been fun, and there's so many deep cuts that I wasn't really aware of, or maybe I heard like once or twice, that are now on constant rotation, and I'm sure are going to end up on, you know, my Spotify Wrapped as some of my, you know, most listened to songs for the year. That's my list. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below, and feel free to put your own ranking of every Trio album in the comments down below. I'm really interested to see what everyone's rankings are, because I feel like for Alkaline Trio they can be really different just because Trio has been around for such a long time. Please like and share the video, subscribe if you haven't, tell all your friends, and thanks for watching.